deployment process would go through the PAOS. And then right after, upon arrival sa host country natin, this is where we have the PAOS, or the Post-Arrival Orientation Seminar. Now, when I started talking about the PAOS, this is actually something, there was one person who made a comment. It was an expat. She actually said that it's something that we would have wanted to have been given to us had we known that there was such a facility na meron palang PAOS, because the PAOS is actually not something that's invented by the Filipinos. It's not something na exclusive to the POA or to OWA or sa atin lang. The PAOS is actually, the Post-Arrival Orientation Seminar is being done and being conducted by a lot of international migrant organizations. And this is being done to help facilitate the adjustment and arrival of foreign workers. So it is not limited to Filipinos, it is not exclusive to Filipinos. But in this case, we're going to do a very quick introduction to the importance of the PAOS and its relevance to us as Filipino workers. So are we still together? Kumusta po tayo?
Yes po, ma'am. Okay po na makikita.
So,
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
We start with introduction to PAOS. What is PAOS? How it's conducted and conditions of conducting the PAOS. Really po, I mean, if you could just comment if there is a problem with the sounds or the streaming natin. So what is PAOS? It's a post-arrival orientation seminar and services provided for migrant workers upon origin, which is our home country. We go to our country of destination or country of deployment. So ito ngayon ang country of destination. It is given usually on site to inform of and facilitate the settlement in the new country of residence. So it could be short, medium, or long-term na orientation seminar and information. And advisably, ito very crucial, it should be given within 2 months maximum from the date of arrival. Kung if it's actually even possible within the first month of the person's arrival in the host country, and that should have been done. But kung maximum na medyo matagal, then at least within 2 months. Bakit? It would help because primarily this is for your adjustment, for your settlement in the new country, to introduce you to the country of destination, your new workplace, and temporary domicile. So if you make it stretch too long, na sobrang tagal bago ka ma-introduce and integrated into that area, then it creates problems. Kasi meron kang lack of information kung saan ka nilagay. It's just like being taken from your home country and dropped somewhere in the middle of it all na wala kang kaalam-alam. So it would be very disorientating. It is advantageous for, as I said earlier, for people who have gone through the PAOS and the usual deployment process. But then for those OFWs or for those new arrivals and new employees who did not go through the usual process, then medyo there's a block, there's a certain sense of disconnect. And this is where the PAOS needs to come. And then, eto ang masaya because usually it is actually a full or a half-day activity. But in this case, this is just a very quick run-through. So we're not going to take a full or a half-day of activity. And then we just have some bits of clarification. So migrant versus the immigrant. Who are the migrant workers? Tayo yung mga migrant. The people who would go temporarily, whereas versus the immigrants, these are the people or the individuals who would want to go and relocate long-term or for permanent. So migrants are temporary, roving. It could be us, it could be any of you who are watching now, or it could be even non-Filipinos, okay? Versus the immigrant who is the permanent settler. So pag nag-immigrate ka, then that's the time that you leave your home country, you take up a different nationality, you take up a different citizenship, whereas tayo, this one is applicable for us who are migrant workers or temporary and with a definite intent to go home. Okay? And then the OFW term is, obviously we know it's Overseas Filipino, or for some they would say Overseas Foreign Workers. Meron din tayong mga kababayan who does not want to use workers. They would want to be referred as Overseas Filipinos, so OF. And then another term that's often used, but we don't really refer to ourselves so much sa mga Filipino, is that expats. Kasi sometimes we have this impression that the expat, when you're referred to or you're called as an expat, usually yung mga Western or non-Filipinos. But it actually also applies to us because it is someone or it is an individual who is actually living outside of one's home country. So that's that. Now, who provides the PAOS? Because then sometimes people will be questioning, why is this group or why is the organization, why am I doing a quick PAOS right now? Now, this is usually done by diplomat and consular missions, job sites, government and private civil society groups, mga support and training networks. But, excuse me, it is best when in partnership and based on actual migrant resource center materials. Bakit? It has to be factual. Hindi pwedeng gawa-gawa lang ang discussion mo for PAOS because there would be a two areas there. General PAOS, which covers the basics, and specific PAOS, which is country orientated. So it could be that there is a PAOS that's only applicable for the Middle East. There's a PAOS that's applicable only for the Western. For a while. Break. Okay, so I'm so sorry. I'm used more to one-on-one live speaking, hindi sa online. So then going back, so we in our case today, we are allowed to conduct this PAOS. Why? It is on the premise that we are basing this on, and this is actually sanctioned and in cooperation with the other registered organizations, with the embassy, with the community, Filipino community in Abu Dhabi, and this is to help our community. So ano siya? It has a beneficial effect to our community. Hindi siya gawa-gawa lang, and then it is something that is in cooperation with everyone else. So what are the benefits of a PAOS? Now, it facilitates the registration into the new country via the embassy, consulate, or the missions. So we might have this thing na, as soon as you arrive into your new country, into ma-deploy ka, then you would need to visit the embassy or the consulate or the missions and register yourself. So ito na yung dumarating na you register for your OWA, you register for the contract verification, all those things which we're going to talk about very, very quickly. But this is the first step. So this will help in the data banking of the origin country of its citizens in other countries. What does that mean? Ito yung way na makakatulong sa bansa natin. When we say bansa natin, the Philippine government would then be able to keep track and know where its citizens are, especially those working overseas. Now, makakatulong ito. Why? it's number one, it's for our benefit when we register. Bakit? Because then it helps our country know. It helps the POEA, the DFA know that there are Filipinos in this particular area. There are Filipinos in this particular country. And then if something should happen, God, enact certain aids now to get you through. Like example, what happened? A very big example is when we had a pandemic in the Middle East. So lahat ng marehistrado ng OWA ng gobyerno na andito sila, they were the first priority to get the aid. So that is one example. And then it provides a comprehensive information on the destination country's profile and demographics, policies, laws, regulations, culture, norms, practices, and language, and also other relevant and important information. So what does that mean? When you undergo a specific country-designed PAOS, let's just say when you reach the UAE, the PAOS that's given in the UAE is specifically containing information kung ano ang applicable in that specific country. So that would cover the do's and don'ts, the culture, the religion, how to behave, what are the expectations. And very specifically, one example in the UAE is going to be on the cyber laws. Okay, so a lot of us would actually fall foul of this particular law and ruling. And it is something that we really have to keep in mind also. So that is one example. And then the norms and practices, the language, the examples of that would be the mode and manner of behavior, the clothing, and medyo mas discreet, medyo mas ano tayo, conservative. So these are some of the examples that would be discussed during that, and another benefit of the PAOS. Now, it also guides newcomers to the performance of functions and responsibilities in accordance with your contract and employer's expectations. Now, this is very, very crucial. Bakit? Ito yung when it comes to knowing your rights and your contract. Ano ang nakasaad sa contract mo? Ano ang specific limitations and scopes, and your specific rights as a person, as an employer, and as an employee in a foreign country. So if you don't know these things, if you don't know some of the basics, then you would have a tendency na either mapariwara ka or you would be ignorant of your rights, and you can be taken advantage of. So that's very important. And then another advantage of another benefit of the PAOS, of course, is that it supports in the adjustment and your potential integration faster and better in your working and living conditions. So if you know the expectations, if you know the rules, if you know the laws, if you know the norms, if you've been given an idea of what to expect and how it's going to be in the UAE by people who are actually living here, and hindi yung imagination lang ng nag-conduct ng seminar back home, who has never been out of the country or has never been to a place like the UAE, then it greatly gives you an advantage and understanding. So, okay, and then it also provides the newly arrived with a platform to be familiar with the members of the community, with the officials of the embassies and missions. So sometimes people would may reactions sometimes when inisip. Introduction to the members of the community. This is very important. When you come to a foreign country, you are by yourself, unless you are fortunate enough that you have your relatives or you have friends already here. But in most cases, there's a lot of first-timers na totally walang kaalam-alam. So it would help to know and get to meet members of your community. By attending the PAOS, you will meet other first-timers. By attending the PAOS, you will get to see and be introduced to officials of your embassy. Now, these are the very people who you should know, especially the embassy and the consulate people, pero dahil sila ang takbuhan mo in case of any emergency, in case of any needs that you would have personally or in line with your work. And then another benefit of the PAOS would be to inform you of the means, platforms, or support networks that will provide you with assistance in case of needs and emergencies. So dito din makikita sa PAOS, when you attend the PAOS in the embassy or in the consulate, they would be informing you if there are any activities or any programs that will be beneficial for you later on. So how and where is the PAOS conducted? This is face-to-face classroom. This could be online, like what we are doing now, or it could be scheduled modules with different topics, and at least once or bi-weekly. So hindi po nagtatapos ang PAOS in one go. It could be continuing. It could be something that's very versatile. And then what are the conditions in conducting the PAOS? So number one rule, wherever you go, whoever is giving the PAOS to you, this should be free to migrant workers, free of charge, no fees whatsoever for the PAOS. All materials and activities are all free, just like what we're doing now. All that you are investing is your time and your internet. It is factual and based on relevant information. And in some cases, a certificate can be provided. So topics usually covered in PAOS, there's four. It's divided into four. So getting settled immediately. These are the basics that we will be really tackling today. The programs and services of the origin and destination countries, getting settled medium term, and then getting settled long term. I think for us, it would be more, our concern would be for the immediate adjustment. Now, I'm going to tell you about some of the concerns that's directly affecting Filipinos overseas. So, ang kadalasang problema natin, personal and voluntary documentations and registrations, mandatory and voluntary memberships for your protection and benefit, the personal safety and managing of oneself overseas, what to do, where to go, whom to go to, mental well-being and adjustment, that's your expectations versus reality. Yan, nagkakaroon ng culture shock sometimes. And then the embassy, consulate missions, and FSO or diplomats. That's FSO means the foreign service officers, the diplomats. These are the people who are working in the embassy or in the government representatives in the foreign country. And their scopes and assistance and limitations, how you reach out to them, getting resolutions or getting answers, and again, expectations versus reality. And also the basic rights, your general and basic laws to know about the new country. This is very important. As we said earlier, pag bagong dating ka, bagong salta ka, the laws are the things that you really should know about. You don't have to memorize their constitution or their rule books, but you know the basics. Then this will help to protect you, not run foul of whatever new rulings, whatever updates, or whatever protocols they have in a certain place. Because as you would know, it's very difficult kung let's just say, especially kung Filipino tayo. It would be very difficult for us when we get into some problems or mga, how would you say it, mga sagulot. Problema, kung sa Bisaya pa, magka-problema ka sa lugar nga dili ta familiar. Okay? And then, there's the thing about our home country mindset versus the country of the destination or relocation. Because we have to admit it. Filipinos are very passionate. Filipinos have a very definite mindset sometimes. We have our ways of thinking na minsan, we have this expression na yung ugali sa bahay o ugali sa bansa natin, minsan wag nating dadalhin kung saan man tayo papunta. I hope that you you are understanding what I'm trying to say. Minsan gulol ako when it comes to translation, but this is essentially our values and our behaviors, our mindset. we have to adjust these things when we go to a foreign country, when we go to a different, because sometimes not everything that is back home is applicable to where we are going. So there are things that can get us into big trouble if we keep on with that kind of attitude. So sabi nga, minsan ang ginagamit nilang word is, yung angas natin sa Pilipinas, huwag nating dadalhin sa labas. And then in the same way, I've also read this somewhere that there are some people who would actually comment in some threads na there's an observation. Actually, it's a bit embarrassing, but it's a true observation that some would say na, bakit if we are outside of the country, we can be very, very well behaved, we can follow all the rules, but pagdating natin back home, then it all goes back. So nawawala. See, so this is part of that mindset ang ano natin. And then there's the culture and nature of the host country. Again, in the UAE, this is a Muslim country, it's a bit conservative. So these are things that we have to take into consideration. There are changes in the laws, and here, as we very well know, from time to time, nagbabago ang mga rules. It will just be announced, sometimes it's not even announced, but the rules are there. So we have to know, we have to try to keep on top of these changes. And most of the time, we'll be able to get this information from in the internet or from the embassies, or as we call them, the representatives of our country. And then another concern of OFWs here would be abuse and trafficking. Now, hopefully, I'm just knock on wood, fingers crossed, that none of those people within our groups or within the audience is a victim of abuse and trafficking, because this is very prevalent. This is something that sometimes we don't even know we're already undergoing. And in most cases, this happens sa mga mga kabayan nating working for households. So you would need to know your rights. You would need to know what are the limitations of your employers. What are your responsibilities? So that, because if you know your right, if you know where you stand, you'd be able to defend yourself. It doesn't mean na makipag-away ka, but then if your employer knows that you know, then it makes a bit of a difference. And then back again to personal discipline and management, self-values, finances, and safety. So these are the ongoing things that paikot-ikot sa buhay ng isang OFW, na it would be an advantage if you knew beforehand, if you had any idea. Kung bagong salta ka pala, may idea ka na ganito pala, then you can plan it out, you can project it. Whereas may iba rin naman sa atin na 5-20 years nasa abroad, but has never gone through any orientation, has not had any assistance or any idea, then medyo masakit din. But then there's always a chance, there's also an opportunity to catch up. And of course, something that we're famous for, our resiliency abroad. Filipinos are very, very known for our attitude of resiliency. Marunong tayong makisama, marunong tayong dumiskarte. And this is something that has been helping us all throughout. Okay, now going back to the topics covered in PAOS. Getting settled immediately. So number one there is registering at your embassy, your consulate, or your mission. The do's and don'ts, roles, rights, responsibilities, job site orientation, knowing about the laws of the country, especially those affecting laborers and migrants, which is us, taxes if applicable, salary transfers, financial capacity, emergency contacts, and taking care of yourself. So ito parang summary lang po of what I tried to discuss very, very quickly earlier. But this is what is part of Module 1, actually, in a proper PAOS, not just in a Filipino-sponsored PAOS, but in an international migrant organization. This is what they would cover in an actual PAOS. Okay, going back, registering or informing the diplomatic mission of your arrival. So ito na yung pinaka-importante. We actually tried, some of the officers of OFW GME, we tried going around and asking randomly, how long have you been here? How long have you been working overseas? And then some would say, ma'am, 3 years, 2 years. Are you registered? Are you a member of OWA? Have you visited the embassy? And then you would be surprised at the number of people who would say, hindi po. I am not registered with OWA. I have no idea about the OEC. I have no idea about DOL. Okay, so it's a bit alarming because if something should happen to these kababayans, then wala silang protection. So going to that, what is POLO? This is the Philippine Overseas Labor Office, and then DOL is the Department of Labor and Employment. In the Philippines, ito yung sila ang regulating workers. Okay? Now, once you leave the country, pag nag-OFW ka na, then these are the agencies connected under DFA. So that's the Department of Foreign Affairs. The Overseas Labor Office is directly connected with them. So sila na ngayon ang nagre-regulate as soon as you come to the home new country. Again, remember the two differences. One is you are deployed as I would say 5 years back. Wala tayong ganitong problema because the deployment was steady. Sa mga kasambahay, from some of the regular workers, there was a steady deployment going through POEA. So they underwent PAOS, and then upon arrival, they went through PAOS. So these people are protected, more or less, they were informed. Now what happened is that, through fault of their own, within the next, let's just say, 5 to 10 years, madami tayong mga bagong employees, bagong OFWs, let's just say the new generation of OFWs who did not go through the usual deployment. Are they illegal? No. Are they traffic? No. That they came through. So ito na yung mga concern natin who are most vulnerable. Those who are on visit visa, those who were on tourist visa, and dependent visas. Bakit? They were already here. They did not go through the registration through POA. Hindi sila dumaan. So kumbaga, they left the country not as an OFW. So they went under the radar. The government does not know that they are now staying at a specific country on a temporary basis, long term, and working there. So what happens is that if there is an emergency, there is a census or wala, hindi sila lumalabas sa dokumento or sa records ng OWA. Wala yung feature, wala silang protection. And this is very sad because we have had a lot of incidents happening wherein masasabi mong dapat sana or I could have, I should have, but it was too late. Okay, so this is very important. So as soon, kaya nga part of the PAOS, of the benefit of the PAOS is that it should be done within a month or two upon arrival, whether you are deployed through POEA or you are here working directly. Let's just use the word working directly. Converted ang visa mo from tourist to visit and dependent. Gaya ko. Then, or a housewife, and then you suddenly decide to work. Then it's very important that you know these things. Go and have your contract verified. I'm not going to go into the details because I'm not an expert on these things. But these are basic now we will touch on, the things to do and things to be reminded of. Go and have your contract verified. Go and have your contract registered at the DOL. Saan ang DOL? In Abu Dhabi, This is in Villa 2. Okay? The embassy and then yung sangay na DOL or POA OWA. Polo OWA, I'm sorry. So, magkaiba po sila. It just so happens that they are placed in one location, but one misconception is that people would all say, I'm going to the embassy, ang sama ng ugali ng taga-OWA. Hindi po sila pareho. So, different ang embassy, different ang Villa 2. Villa 1 is embassy, Villa 2 is andun ang Polo, DOL, and OWA. So, separate po sila. So, as soon as you are employed, whether you came directly or whatsoever, as soon as you get your contract, take it with you, have it verified, registered, para maging rehistrado ka. And then you become an official OFW. You are under the OWA. That's the Overseas Workers Welfare Association. Then you get benefits. You get protection. Hindi po yung pupunta ka lang ng embassy or pupunta ka sa Villa 2 asking, pagpa-uwi ka na. This is what happens a lot. At the end of the contract, people would go to the embassy area and say, I need an OSC or babakasyon ako, I need an OSC para makabalik ako. That's not how you do it, okay? Go and have yourself registered as soon as you have your new contract. Brand new contract, renewed contract, have it verified, have it updated. Because that is one of the pitfalls of the gray areas. Remember, I'm not sure if I should be talking about this, but one very recent incident was the KFC bombing. Okay, so this is something that we have been following very, very, very closely. For 13 years, fully registered as an OWA member. And then, during the height of the pandemic, naglapse ang kontrata. Hindi nakapag-rehistro, hindi nakapag-update. On one particular day, that the person was supposed to meet with a PRO to have his contract renewed and verified and membership updated, something happened. There was a tragedy. Wala. The person fell under the gray area. Because naglapse ang coverage, naglapse ang benefit, ang protection, nothing. You are vulnerable. You are only waiting kung ano ang tawang gawa in this case na someone would look at you and say, oh sige na nga, we'll help you out. But we really don't need to because hindi ka na pasok. And that is so sad. That is so painful. Because imagine for how many years, miyembro ka, protected ka, you're confident, you're thinking that you have this protection and benefit. Then all of a sudden, in a blink of an eye, you find out na dahil lang pala isang buwan or dalawang buwan na hindi ka nakapag-renew, hindi ka nakapag-update. And then it all goes for nothing. Okay? So please, do your contract verification and registration. Not kung papauwi or going for a vacation, but as soon as you have the new contract. And you also have to remember that the contract and your OWA membership cannot be on the same time frame. So you have to be aware of these things. And then you have to do your membership. There are some mandatory and voluntary memberships that you have to take care of as an OFW, yung SSS natin, yung pag-ibig natin. So these are things that we still have to and remember. Na eventually, when we go home, kailangan pa rin natin ito. And then part of getting set is your awareness against anti-illegal recruitment campaign. So what is this? There's a lot of us who would try and find, syempre, everybody is here for the opportunity. Bagong buhay, bagong advancement. But be careful when you go and trust people. Pag sinabing there's a recruitment, there's a new job, there's an opportunity, it might not always be the opportunity that you can trust. And unfortunately, it also happens na kadalasan mga kabayan din natin are those who would pray. When I say pray, it's not praying na pinagdasalan, pero yung mga kung baga, the parasites would actually even be within areas na you would not expect that they would be at the embassy area. You would not expect that they would be lurking at church or mga kasama niyo in the offices or even on Facebook. So there are some people who would want to entice you to new employment, to somewhere else na it would sound very, very convincing. It would sound very, very, what's this? Masarap pakinggan. But it is full of perils. Bakit? Some people get sold into contracts. Some people are encouraged to leave their employers. And what happens is that binibenta kayo, you are encouraged to break your contract, and then binibenta to an agency, and then the agency does not care about you. So it falls under the illegal recruitment. It actually falls under trafficking. And also the pitfalls of going through those self-visa. There's a difference between the real visa, the entrepreneur's visa, and the visa that people are selling illegally. So mag-iingat po tayo dito. So we can talk about it on a different discussion about the perils of these types of visa, the differences in these kinds of visas. Na madami pong a lot of people would comment on threads in Filipino communities, in Filipino FB groups, that freelancer visa or own visa, buy your own visa, all legal, everything is taken care of. Be very wary of these kinds of people. Nasasabihin na you can buy your own visa, you can sponsor yourself, you can open your bank account, you can do this, you can do that, but then in reality, you get trapped in another kind of business. Okay, so another thing is, part of getting settled immediately is that you will be made aware of labor concerns. What is labor concerns? These are the things that can happen or that will arise between you as an employee and your employer. So if anything happens, if there is a disagreement, there's a dispute, then you can go and find help through your diplomatic mission or your embassy. So ito yung advantage. And of course, it follows, there's the legal assistance and MORE. MORE is not part of our government benefit, but it is there for the UAE side. But it helps for you to be aware that pwede kang lumapit sa MORE, pwede kang lumapit sa labor without having to be afraid. And you can actually ask the embassy, you can actually ask our diplomatic mission or the consulate or the welfare officer or the ATN to assist you with that. And then, of course, there's another set, the do's, don'ts, roles, rights, and responsibilities. More or less, kasali na yun, it's a general thing. Job site orientation, which is part of getting settled immediately. And again, knowing the laws of the country, especially those affecting labor and migrants. So paulit-ulit, if you'd notice, paulit-ulit siya. Bakit siya paulit-ulit? It's not because there's a mistake in the PowerPoint, but it's because these are the very important things that needs to be stressed. It needs to be really, really taken into mind na ito yung mga things that if you fall foul, if something happens, then these are the things that depends on your integration, on your life as an OFW. And when we talk about job site orientation, this refers actually to internal. Ito yung once you go into your work site, given by the HR, this will be given. This is something that you need to listen to. Huwag po nating sabihin na boring ang orientation or boring ang seminars or anything, because these are the things that sometimes hindi tayo nakikinig, we take it for granted, but all the details, all the things that will help you later on, these are discussed. And then later on, it was talked about, it was given to you, the information was given to you, and then nganga ka because you were not listening, then wala ka ng habol because you were the one who was amiss. Okay, so on the getting settled immediately, these are the things that are interrelated to your day-to-day. So HR practices, protocols, actual job description, scopes and limits, documentations, your human rights, your standard contract, culture, and practices. So very, very important po ito. And then on another side, taxes if applicable, salary transfers, financial capacity, emergency contacts, and taking care of yourself. So these are still part of the PAOS. Ito yung mga kinocover ng PAOS, importante. Taxes. Wala po tayo, for us Filipinos, the country is tax-free, our salaries are tax-free, and our remittances are also tax-free. So on that part, hindi po applicable sa atin. But if you do have properties back home that you are maintaining, then you have to think about those things also. So that's one thing you have to remember. Just because you left the Philippines, just because po nag-OFW tayo, pumunta tayo sa ibang bansa, iniwan natin ang home country, hindi po ibig sabihin na nakalimutan na natin or absuelto na tayo sa responsibilities back home. Okay, so there are some things that you have to maintain. There are properties, there are obligations and responsibilities that you have to think about also. And then when it comes to salary transfers, it would be given to you, an idea would be given to you during the PAOS. What is the percentage of your salary that you should be sending? Paano ang pagbabudget? Because these are very important things. Sometimes we get so excited on the first salary, ipadala lahat. Or so excited on the first salary, sasabihin mo sa buong barangay mo, eto po yung sahod ko. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not bragging. You're just so excited, lalo na pag first timer. But then you have to remember na merong limits ka dapat sa ipapadala mo sa financial capacity, based on financial capacity. And we have to be truthful kung ano ang kaya. Because in some cases, some OFWs would fall victim of this. Tapos continuous na yon. Bakit? You would be so excited and so generous na ipadala mo lahat. You don't leave anything for yourself. You don't budget or pay yourself first. When we say pay yourself first, part of financial literacy is that you know your priorities, yung mga obligations mo, expenses-wise. I mean, I'm not an expert on this. I would not even say na perfect ako sa budgeting ko because I also fell foul of this. When I first came, like that was 13, 14 years ago, it was really, really good. But I did not go through the PAOS. See, I did not go through the PAOS because even though I was working for an agency, I was a recruitment officer back in the Philippines. I was recruiting nurses and medical professionals for a Hall of Famer na agency. But I myself did not go through PAOS. I myself did not go through a PAOS. So even though I knew some basic things, I missed out a lot of the details that should have been given to me. And that is something that I have always regretted. Bakit? Because 13 years on, it has affected how I managed myself. I just got lucky that some aspects of my life sorted itself out. But on hindsight, I would have wanted na dumaan ako ng PAOS at dumaan ako ng PAOS. Because back in the Philippines, we were giving PAOS. My agency was giving and sorting out in-house PAOS. But it was all theoretical. We've not been outside. We've not worked as OFWs. So we did not know how it actually was. And then I missed out also on the PAOS, yung adjustment, yung mental capacity mo and financial capacity mo. Medyo you will really get disoriented. No matter how you say na kaya ko to, alam ko to, I've read this, I've heard this, in-advisean ako ganito ganyan. But if it's not sorted out properly and laid out na in-explain sa'yo kung ano sana ang dapat, then you will really, really miss out on that. Okay? And then another very important thing on getting settled immediately as part of the PAOS is knowing and informing someone of your whereabouts, contact numbers, and details. Sasabihin ng iba, nakakatawa, bakit isinali? But this is actually very important in terms of safety. You need to have a contact number. You need to have a reference person. We're not talking of reference in terms of trabaho, but kailangan merong taong nakakaalam where you are. Kung saan ka, if saan ka naka-base, saan ka nakatira, at least man lang, isa sa mga kamag-anak mo or someone that you trust, because you never know what will happen. Even nga, I mean, God forbid, no, but again, there's been some examples of this happening. This is a very safe country, but believe you me, things still happen, and you cannot prevent it, and it is a reality. It's not something na paninira, it does not besmirch the country or the place where we are, but there are some realities that we have to accept and admit that things can happen and we can't always control our safety. So always have a point of contact, always have someone informed where you are living, how you are contacted, what are your plans, mga long-term or short-term plans mo, at least have a routine na merong nakakaalam, because then it will help for your safety in case something happens. And of course, very important is our mental and emotional well-being. There has to be a balance. So hindi po tayo trabaho. Of course, we came here to work, but we also have to take care of ourselves physically, emotionally. Hindi puro sub-sub trabaho lang tayo. We have to find avenues and ways, which is why you get involved in the community, you get involved in church, something that will keep you grounded. At the same time, distract you also in a good way from the stress or from the pressures of work. Okay? And then there are some basic part of the topics covered in PAOS is the programs and services of the origin and destination country. So I'll try to keep this really short, but of course, since this is part of the PAOS, these are important things. Okay, so basic assistance na nakukuha natin through the PAOS. You get to be informed that you are entitled to repatriation, especially of irregular or undocumented workers. Shipment of remains, blood money, verification of whereabouts and conditions, criminal cases just in case, if you are a victim of illegal recruitment and trafficking, in case of kidnapping and hostage or of someone disappearing, these are all part of the basic assistance that you are entitled to and you should know. And you will only know this as a fact if you have attended a PAOS. Because some people would say, may ganito akong problema, pwede ba akong lumapit sa embassy? Pwede ba akong lumapit sa OWA or sa ATN? Or baka ipagtabuyan ako? Is this covered by the assistance? Then, if madami tayong doubts, then tendency is it could be crucial in terms of time element or in terms of even life. So, knowing that you have these advantages and benefits is very important. And then another assistance that you would be entitled to and you would know if you attended the PAOS is that you are entitled to legal services. And these are all connected, by the way, to our embassy and to the OWA, okay, and the ATN. So if in the event that someone is detained or convicted or there is a service needed for legal counsel or counseling of the lawyer, prison and hospital visits, if somebody gets sick po, you have to inform, especially kung mag-isa ka dito. I mean, of course, we have friends, we have colleagues, but it would also be helpful if you really feel na you're in a certain stage of illness or emergency, you have to inform the embassy, you have to inform OWA, excuse me, na you are sick. And then you will be entitled to hospital visits. Bakit? Someone has to monitor you. It also helps for your mental well-being na alam mong somebody is making a follow-up and caring for you. Okay? So hindi po yung pag-inarte, hindi po rin po yung nakakahiya na if something happens to you, I mean, if you fall into prison or if you get sick, it's nothing embarrassing. A lot of people, a lot of innocent people actually can run foul of the rules of the law. and can find themselves in jail, in prison. So hindi po natin yan ikakahiya. Kailangan po nating magsabi at humingi ng tulong. And then you are also entitled to basic information on the law, criminal, and legal procedures. So like what's going on right now, ang byuda ng KFC is one example. She is being given assistance by the ATN and OWA because previously he was under OWA, but then they found out that kaso na pala yung membership niya. So if you are an undocumented OFW, dun ka tatakbo sa ATN. Kung documented, registered ka, dun ka sa OWA. So dalawa ang ano yan, division, magkaiba ang division niyan. So you will get assistance. You are still entitled to assistance as a Filipino national in a foreign country. Hindi ka pa rin pwedeng ipagtabuyan ng embassy or ng consulate or ng foreign mission nyo, regardless of what they say, regardless who is there. It is still part of your basic right, our basic right as a Filipino. Kumatok sa embahada, kumatok sa OWA, sa POAA, sa ATN natin and say, I need help. And I am entitled to this help. And then, of course, there is the conciliation of amicable settlements. If meron tayong mga problema, konting sagulot, again, this is part of our life, day-to-day life as an OFW. Going back earlier, remember I said na meron tayong mga mindsets, attitudes, and behaviors back home. So sometimes nagkakainitan in a foreign country. Some people fall foul of the law kasi biglang yung bugso ng damdamin, bugso ng dugo or something, however they call that, nakipag-away, they get into arguments. Then they go into a legal issue. But if you can do something without reaching that point, then you go for conciliation or amicable settlements. Kung kaya namang ma-sort out or kayang ma-settle between the two of you, between a friend, a colleague, na nakipagsuntukan ka or whatever, na hindi kayo kailangang magkasuhan or magpapulis, then do it amicably. Don't make your life difficult in a foreign country, especially in a foreign country. And then, of course, the consular services, the legal statements, affidavits. This is what we know the embassy for. Actually, very familiar tayo sa mga services na to, yung sa passporting, sa mga documents. These are the things that we go and run to the embassy for. Okay, so these are basic services. And then there is the labor service. So ito yung portion na as an OFW is very important, especially po for our mga kasambahay, especially for the kabayans who are not very familiar with their rights. And I'm not saying na in a discriminatory way for the kasambahay, because even people working in offices, even people working in white collar industry are even and can even be ignorant of their own rights. Totoo po yan. Madami. We have met a lot of people who would say, sa sobrang bait, would not even know that they are being abused, sa sobrang bait, or because they don't know it, that it's part of their basic right, they're already being taken advantage of by their companies, by their employers. So this is part of the labor services. You have to know your rights. And you can get the information from the embassy, from the labor services of our foreign mission here in the embassy in Villa number 2, sa DOL or sa OWA. You can actually ask them, or even the ATN, you can even ask them for information about the laws, about the legalities that would help to protect you. And it's actually recommended that these facilities would offer regular seminars, regular information campaigns for the OFWs as a reminder. Kasi sa sobrang dami po ng mga bagong patakaran, mga bagong mga rules that would come out from time to time, there are updates. Then the tendency is people will go into an FB group people will go into an FB community chat, magtatanong, and then they will post, ganito ang problema ko, please respect my post. And then they get bashed or they get the wrong information. But then some would also say, I would prefer dito kasi nasasagot agad ako, or I would prefer dito kasi I'm not being turned away. So there are different perspectives po. But basically, there is that you need to know and you are entitled to these services from our very own DOL and OWA. And again, part of labor service is your work permits, applications, renewals, and expirations. Again, that is with DOL na nandito sa ating Villa 2. And then ascertaining whereabouts, runaways, and other grievances. Sensitive issue, whereabouts. What does it mean, ascertaining whereabouts? Pag meron pong nawawala, missing in Abu Dhabi, missing in the UAE, or missing from home, hindi matrace, walang contact for so many days, not reporting for work, then there is a number that you can actually call sa ano natin, sa OWA natin, through the embassy, and they would try to ascertain if the person is not in any detention, if the person is not in any hospital or whatsoever, to ensure na the person is safe or alive. And then of course, yung runaways and other grievances natin. The embassy or Villa 2, OWA does not encourage people to abscond. That is going to a very, very sensitive and very, very long issue. But bottom line po is, do not encourage anyone to break their contract. Do not encourage anyone to abscond and run away, or upon, there are people who would say that upon finishing their contracts, they will not board the plane, gagawa ng paraan, and then they would actually brag about it online na, ang galing-galing ko, hindi ako sumakay sa eroplano, lumusot ako sa amo ko. So these are things that can actually bring you afoul of the law. Okay? And then, of course, there are the death benefits, end of service, insurance, and other issues arising from employer-employee relationships, and counseling of non-performance of personal and employee obligations. So, kasali din po ito sa labor services natin. And then others, social welfare services, health services, police, transport capability building, social protection. All of these things, if you go through a PAOS, you would know that you are entitled to receive this in the embassy and in the consulate. Karapatan po ninyo ito. It's not something that you need to makiusap para mabigyan kayo. You are entitled to, of course, you ask nicely, but these are things that should not be something that we have to beg and find very difficult to attain for ourselves. So social welfare services, meron po tayong mga welfare officers who would look into domestic disputes. Of course, these are something that we should try to keep within ourselves. Hindi na natin ito ilalabas at iaano pa na lumaki. But then, things like this, if merong sagulot or merong problema between couples, may problema against getting services or any mga provisions, and there are also some benefits that are in-house that are offered by our government through our embassy and through the OWA, na minsan it only happens during times of pandemics or times of emergencies. And then yung transport po, if there is a medical transport, there is a police transport, or even when say capability building, yung mga activities, mga team buildings or mga skills and those kinds of activities, kasali rin po ito. And then of course, the trend ngayon, but actually it's not a trend, it's something that has always been there, pero often ignored, is the economic return and reintegration. Marami po, I know within the groups, within the organizations watching and part of this collaboration, there are a lot of you who are very, very savvy when it comes to reintegration and planning. Wala pong sounds? I'm sorry. May sound na ba? I'm sorry.
Malinaw po, malinaw
Meron
na.
po,
Okay
merong
naman
sound po,
malinaw
meron.
siya.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Please let me know kasi iba kasi ang nagmamanage ng technical
Merong
May sound po, may
I'm
sound.
talking. Okay, so going
Meron
back
po,
to that,
meron.
alam ko po na within this group, there are so many members who have actually been very wise in terms of their economic return and reintegration plans. And I will even mention some. Si Ma'am Shay ng OFWGME, I mean, I can only mention those that I know. Si Sir Ron, the immediate past na president natin ng Bayanihan. These are si Sir Bonnie. These are si Ma'am Sandra Fe. These are people who have been planning. And I know there are a lot more of you here. I just don't know. So hindi ko masabi. Pero I know that there are a lot of you here who are very well prepared and looking forward actually to the reintegration, planning financially, planning for your investments back home. And this is something na, again, on hindsight, ito yung mga tao na once they arrive at the place of destination, yung country of destination, alam na agad nila na I'm going to save this, I'm going to invest in this, I'm going to plan for this. So ito yung mga tao na may target talaga. Unfortunately, I was not one of them. So medyo I'm trying to catch up, but it's never too late to educate ourselves on financial literacy also. Okay, now what are some of the topics that will be covered in a PAOS if it is on a settling for medium term? So ito yung advancing and developing yourself, training skills expansion, managing resources and finances, personal growth in terms of culture and exposure, civic works and organizations, reintegration plans, emergency plans in terms of physical and financial. So kung medyo medium term ka na nakarating ka na at nakapag-settle ka na, again, this is still part of PAOS, ha? Some would say, bakit kasali pa yan sa discussion? You're here for a few years na, second contract mo na, bakit post-arrival orientation seminar ka pa rin? Because you are still continuing on your journey. So there are still changes, there are still avenues and ways to develop yourself. And that is where it comes, nasettle mo na ang sarili mo, rehistrado ka na, protektado ka na, may routine ka na sa trabaho, you're enjoying your life, and then you start looking forward midway. Develop and advance yourself. Get more skills. Target for advancement at work, promotions, anything. Feel mo it would add to your value. And this would be in trainings and skills expansions. Merong mga free trainings that are actually being offered by some of the organizations who are members here. I'm sure if we ask some of the leaders here, maraming makapaglista na they can help and actually trainings. And it will be very, very beneficial to the members and anybody who would want to participate. And then learning how to manage your resources and finances. Again, this is on the integration and the current financial literacy. Your personal growth, culture and exposure. Learn to enjoy. Yung parang, this is time also to add to yourself. Kumbaga, reward yourself. Travel, learn new things, enjoy your time, enjoy your day off or your holidays, your staycation. Even during the time of pandemic, it is the time for growth. So you can take that opportunity. And then, of course, civic works and organizations. This is what we are all doing right now. So by joining the Bayanihan, by collaborating with different organizations, we get to meet the community. This is already one very big advantage. We get to know a lot of other professionals, a lot of other people who would be within our network, because everybody in this group, everybody that you potentially meet is a contact, is someone who can help you, is someone that you can help, is someone who is a future friend na makakatulong, and someone who will be part of your community here. And then your emergency plans. So physical and financial. Sometimes there are things that we don't want to talk about, but of course these are also part of basics. Okay, so kailangan natin na mag-ano ng, in case of eventualities na mawalan tayo ng trabaho, or that you also need to look forward to. Okay, so do we take a break for a bit? Meron na lang tayong settling for long term. Are there any questions and answers na natanggap po natin? Hopefully, walang masyadong nakakatakot na tanong. Si Ma'am Athea lang ang nakikita ko dito sa Hong Kong eh. Si Sir. Actually, part po ng... Yes, ma'am. Hi, Ma'am Jai. Hindi ko alam kung naririnig tayo. Or should I go on? Are there any questions that we have?
Very clear po kaya, ma'am.
Acknowledge ma'am kay Sir Mark ng Israel
Po ang
nandito.
sound natin.
Sir Mark. Magandang hapon, Sir
Hello,
Mark.
Sir Mark. Hindi ko kayo masyadong naririnig. Sige po.
Hello po.
Ma'am Altia.
Magandang
Good
umaga.
afternoon.
Magandang hapon pala sa inyo lahat dyan. Binabati ko kayo from Holy Land, Israel. Malamig dito ngayon.
Yeah. Mag-4:30 dito sa amin, sir. Ng hapon.
Oh.
Dire ko dito to 25 hapon dito sa Israel.
Ano tayo,
Ma'am
may...
Jai, magandang gabi.
Sir Mark, kumusta po?
Okay lang po. Sino yung nagsasalita? Si Ma'am, parang si Ma'am MJ yun ah.
Hopefully po, medyo, tayo, medyo useful naman po yung pinag-usapan natin today. Very, very, lang, kung sa Bisaya pa, taphaw lang kayo ni. It's not even in-depth, but this is part of, just the information literacy that we're doing. Okay. So, I'm just going to continue po. Konti na lang po ito. So, we're going to the last part, which is getting settled long-term. Na another advantage when you are aware and when you have gone through a PAOS. So, pathways to integration, it's either residency or citizenship or integrating back home. So, these are some of the things that a lot of you would be interested. Pathway to integration. From a migrant to an immigrant. Of course, for us here in the UAE, it's not possible, but for FWs in other countries, this is very, very much an opportunity. This is very much a possibility. So for long-term settling, long-term terms na to, when these are part of the tips that are given to you during a PAOS, pwede kang maging resident, permanent resident or citizen in your host country. And I know that there are some of you here who are actually looking forward to moving to different countries, or for those who are watching in different countries, mga iba nating members dyan na nasa Europe at nasa ibang areas where it is possible to become a citizen either by marriage or by application, na you are looking forward to your retirement. We do have some members in Italy who are actually working on this. There are some people there who are looking forward to retirement, some in New Zealand. So there are some countries that it is actually a very, very big possibility and opportunity where you are looking into your pathways for integration as a resident or citizen in your host country. And then for us na nandito in the Middle East, where we are not as what would say, wala tayong advantage of being a citizen or permanent resident, then yung future employment plans. If allowable, it's time to make your plans, time to look into, project into something else, maybe in another country, maybe in another profession after you have advanced yourself. So never limit yourself kung ano ang career mo ngayon. Because there's always an opportunity to advance, there's always an opportunity to develop. And part of your long-term na integration plan as an OFW or as a foreign Filipino or as an expat Filipino will either be going back home to reintegrate or to be a permanent immigrant. So this is the time in your life wherein you look forward and you start putting in the foundations. You've already laid down the foundations before. This time you start working on the foundations, doing your paperwork, doing your applications, take trainings, saving. So these are the things that you can do for now. And of course, for those who are thinking of going back home, try to support projects in the country of origin. Now, a lot of us are also doing this. I can only speak, of course, for most of the members of the meron tayong mga members dito na merong mga feeding projects back home, mga OFW members natin na merong mga outreach programs like Ma'am Jai, Sir Leo, who have been very active in trying to find ways for fellow OFWs to be able to reintegrate themselves back into the economy and into the country. And then, of course, for some places, your voting rights or political participation in the country of origin, yung iba gustong bumalik, they would want to establish themselves as something in politics, or your voting rights, you could So basically, that's it po. And that our very quick, well, for me it was quick, if I might have bored some of you, but that was actually just a very scheme. It was kung sa ano pa, taphaw ra kay to, nga imabaw ra sa topic of what are the things and benefits that you can get through the PAOS. So hopefully po, you're not too disappointed. I was not too boring. And sana po meron po tayong nakuhang mga idea po on the advantages of the PAOS, and we would be able to apply it. The things that we have heard now, the things that some new ideas that we might have gathered, and some of the information na might have been reiterated na alam natin pero now na-confirm na natin na pwede pala, karapatan pala natin, or we are entitled to it. So that's it po. Do we have any questions na hindi masyadong mahirap?
Open na po tayo para sa question and answer. Kung may mga questions po, pwede kayo magtanong.
I'm not going to be the only person who will be able to answer questions. I would actually welcome the officers and members of the different groups to share information kung meron mang mga tanong na ipipresent. Because I'm sure these leaders are very savvy on some of this information. So if you have any questions, ngayon na po na questions. So if we have no questions coming in, I think we will stop na po. we have an admin in the waiting area, ano, or no questions? So if there are no questions po, I would like to say thank you so much for giving the time, for the collaboration and the trust, and of course for all of your presence. And hopefully po maulit po tayo. We have other topics for discussion, and if you want, just send us kung ano po ang gusto.
Ma'am MJ,
Oh my goodness.
Ma'am MJ,
Yes
in
po.
behalf po ng Bayanihan Learning and Development, we would like to say thank you so much for your time and the opportunity to hear this information, fruitful information. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Pasalamatan din po natin si si Chairman Renante Avillanosa ng Bayanihan. Nag-attend po siya ng ating PAOS. Maraming salamat po, Chairman.
And then we would like also to acknowledge the former Bayanihan Council Chairman, Engineer Jeff Uy. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone.
At saka doon po sa mga taga Hong Kong at saka yung taga Macau na nag-attend ng ating PAOS, maraming salamat po sa pagsuporta nyo. Kay Sir Mark din ng Israel, maraming salamat. Ma'am Jai, salamat po. Sir Conrad Quezon from Dubai, maraming salamat.
Okay. Meron actually, yes. So I hope you're not detailed na dala. Ang next topic po natin is more specific kasi this is very timely na palagi nating nakikita sa mga chat rooms and community groups na pinag-uusapan rights ng mga regular kasambahan natin. Because they are an integral part po, household staff, part of our community. So we cannot ignore them. And marami pong mga confusion, marami pong mga simple na sasabihin natin simple na mga tanong na pinag-uusapan nila, itatanong nila, di ba pwedeng ganito, bakit ginaganito ako? So this is going to be the next step. Expectations as an employee and the limitations of human rights natin and the rights according to what we are entitled while here in the UAE and in general po across the globe po. So that is going to be our next topic. So hopefully it's not just for everyone, it's not just for those na who would feel na applicable sa kanila. We would also still welcome everyone to join in because this thing, no? So everybody is part of our community. And isang problema ng isang kasambahay, isang problema ng isang household staff natin is a rippling effect on the Filipino community. So this is going to be the next topic po. And we already have the assurance of Gina who has a group of Filipino OFWs also na mga kambahay who are really sadly needing some assistance and information. So I would really enjoin everybody to also still cooperate and collaborate with us. We need your support in terms of your presence and in terms of whatever information you can also share when we do. Thank you po.
Yeah, that's correct, Madam MJ. The next topic will be very good, really, because the most vulnerable part or segment of our OFW society here in the UAE are the household service workers who are not aware of their rights.
Yes po.
I mean, the framework of the UAE law, and they're ignorant also of the procedures within the Philippine laws and the embassy.
Yes po, I agree po, Sir Gimo. That was Sir Gimo. No? Oh. So,
And I think the assignment of the community really is to find out from here today up to the next session is to find out the questions from these household service workers, if it is possible. What are their concerns, which should be raised to the authorities of the Philippine government here in the UAE.
actually po, yes, this is actually something that has been ongoing. As you would know, into this, kasi ito yung isa sa mga advocacies natin with most of our members, and because we have a mixed lot of members, purpose and household staffs na sinusuportahan natin. So, and I am gathering, we have been gathering a lot of concerns, a lot of questions, and yun nga, mga basic na tanong na we would think dapat alam na natin, but they are actually struggling with this information, abuse, because hindi nila alam na hindi pala dapat ginagawa sa kanila to. Something that we would say na kasimple naman, but hindi mo alam. Pero actually, nangyayari po because they have not PAOS, they have not gone through PAOS. A lot of them have been trafficked, a lot of them have been abused, and there are hundreds of them asking these questions online in different FB groups and getting mixed reactions, mixed information na kadalasan mas lalong nagpapa gulo sa isip nila and makes them even more vulnerable.
Yeah, that's true. Even to be a member of OWA, they are not aware of these rights and these privileges from the government. Some of them have been here for 40 years and they are not yet member of OWA. Imagine they are depriving themselves of some benefits which will get from the government.
So hopefully these are the things that would be taken up by next next session. It will just be announced by Sir Josh or Ma'am Ethel, and then in the meantime I'll be preparing for the materials.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you, and I really appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam.
Send po feedbacks po natin ha, so that we can improve po for next session.
Yes po. At saka sa next seminar po natin, we will try to invite some guests that can help us answer our questions na kung ano yung mga concerns pa nating susunod. So we will inform po kung kailan yung next natin. Hopefully magawa natin tong regular as discussed before. So yun, maghahanap po tayo ng guest speaker natin na kakailanganin natin para sa susunod na topic natin. Right, Madam MJ?
Yes po. Kasi it's a collaboration. Nobody, not one person has the monopoly of information. Kaya nga sinasabi ko, even kung may magtanong, everybody is welcome to help answer. Kasi each and every one of us merong alam na makakasolve at makakatulong. So thank you so much again. Sir Josh, back to you. Okay na ako?
Yes, ma'am. Pasalamatan lang natin yung mga nagsuporta sa atin, yung mga organizations na kakollaboration natin dito, kakolab natin dito sa ating ginawang PAOS and seminar na to, ang KPNMC, SOUAE, of course Bayanihan, kasama natin ang FNAE, Isabilino, Dabazi. Tingnan mo na, remind nyo ako, baka may malimutan ako. TGBITO, Tawid COVID Correspondence, of course. Siyempre, OFWGME. Baka may nakalimutan pa ako. Pasalamatan na natin yung ano. Madam Ethel, baka may nakalimutan ako. Wala, nakompleto ko ba? Ayun. At
and then don't forget sa lahat ng mga nag-attend, sa lahat ng mga kung members natin from different chapters, and then sa lahat ng mga leaders ng different Filipino organizations under the Bayanihan Council. Maraming salamat po sa time na inilaan nyo para sa ating first series of webinar, ang Practical and Realistic PAOS. I hope na meron tayong nakukuhang mga aral at saka mga informations na magagamit din natin habang tayo po ay nakikipag-coordinate or tumutulong sa ibang OFWs kapwa OFWs natin na kadalasan tayo yung nagiging bridge. Tayo yung pinagtatanungan. Minsan din natin alam kung ano isasagot natin. So at least alam natin ngayon kung ano yung mga bagay-bagay na importanteng pwede nating mai-pass na information sa kanila. So maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat.
Thank you, Madam.
Recognize din po natin yung SAOM at saka yung FITS, not the FITS. Nandiyan po sila na nag-participate din sa ating
Oo, sila pala
webinar
yung
na to.
head ng
Pwede
head
po
ng
kayo
learning
mag-suggest kung ano yung pwede nating
development.
topic sa susunod para
Yes.
ma-prepare natin at mas maayos.
Thank you.
Suggest po kayo ng
tayong lahat.
ng topic na itatakal natin.
Okay, thank you sa mga info kay Madam MJ, sa OFW GMA at mga
Then group
organizers.
picture.
Ang dami na
Group picture
nag-like.
daw, group
Thank you po sa
picture.
inyo lahat. Thank you po. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po si Ma'am Jen. Tana,
Let's
Coach
share the voice of the organizations who participated in this webinar. Let me call on KPNMC first. Ano ba?
Salamat po.
Ayan, salamat.
Kapitana.
Chairman Nante.
SOUAE, meron pa ba?
Yan si Chairman Nante.
Yes, ma'am.
Taom.
Maraming salamat.
Yun, Chairman Antex. Pakinggan natin yung message sa Chairman Antex sa mga organizations. Chairman, welcome po.
Maraming salamat sa sa OFW GMA at sa mga kasamang organizations na nag-initiate sa ganitong klaseng seminar para sa mga bagong dating na OFW. Karamihan kasi sa atin, pagdating sa trabaho, diretso na. Wala nang kuwan. Pag may nangyari, saka pala magtatanong. So, ito yung magandang programa para sa lahat. Sana mapalaki ang coverage.
Yes.
Mawide ang coverage. Kasi maganda
Mas
talaga
marami
siya.
po. Mas next time.
Tama,
Salamat
Chairman.
sa inyo. Salamat po sa inyo.
We will make it regular, Chairman. As discussed, ganun sinabi ko nga sa iyo na pag-usapan natin, gawin natin itong regular series na program natin and with the collaboration sa Bayanihan nga at sa mga organizations na nag-start na i-initiate itong programang ito. So, yun nga, gawin natin itong regular. Mag-suggest kayo ng topic na pwede natin i-discuss every meeting.
May nagbibidyo kita.
Tawa ko doon. Sorry po, natawa lang. Tawa ko doon.
Tapos na ba? Thank you again, ha? Susunod.
Picture daw, picture. Ano na yung picture natin, Madam Chair? Madam Chair. Sige. Smile lang daw po. Mag-picture si Madam Chair. Coach Arby, salamat. Nandiyan ka pala. Hindi kita napansin kanina. Thank you very much, Coach Arby. Ito si Dabazi, Ronaldin, tsaka Rosa Licera. Ayun, Dabazi. Hello po.
Thank you rin, Sir Jos.
On behalf of the Basi Circle of Friends po, maraming salamat Ma'am NJ tsaka sa OFW GMA po sa tungkol sa PAOS po. Pasensya kinakabahan po. Sa lahat po din ng mga organization. Maraming salamat po at saka sa Bayanihan po. La Chairman. Maraming salamat po.
Actually, hindi lang po ito OFW GME. Kasama yung Dabasi sa nag-facilitate nito. Salamat.
Salamat po, Sir Jos.
Sir Mark ng Israel, salamat po. Sino pa ba?
Hong Kong kanina.
Imelda Nazareno, Arlen Pedro.
Salamat din sa inyo sa pag-initiate niyo.
Andyan si Arlene ng Northern Taipei, andyan si Ma'am Benz ng Macau, andyan si Ma'am
Iyan,
si
hinga naman natin ng message si Ma'am
Hong Kong.
Jai. Ma'am Jai. Hello po.
Again po, maraming salamat po sa lahat. Sa mga gusto po mag-left, pwede na po. Baka naano na namin yung time ninyo sa day off ninyo.
Yun. Magkasalita pa yata si Ma'am Jai Tel.
Magkaroon ng open forum. Okay lang po. Ma'am Jai, thank you. Any parting words?
Naubusan ako ng words.
Nawala si Ma'am Jai.
Nagkakahiyaan na kung ano na.
Ma'am Jai.
Ma'am Jai.
Hello po, Ma'am Jai. Message po.
na.
Wala itang sound si Ma'am Jai. Walang sound si Ma'am Jai.
Walang sound, Jai.
Unmute si Ma'am Jai. Unmute si Ma'am Jai.
Hindi ka po namin marinig, Ma'am.
May bagyo ata doon sa
Wala yata si Ma'am Jai. Okay. Maraming salamat po. Sino pa po may gustong sabihin? Baka meron pa kayong gustong sabihin. Open po. Okay.
Nakapagpa-picture na.
Picture. Okay na daw. Okay na. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sige po.
Thank you po, ma'am.
Okay. Baka masawa na kayo sa mukha namin.
Next.
Thank you.
Sige. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Ingat po kayo lahat.
Thank you po.